Hello people of YouTube, my name is Brad, this is my channel, and I'm an Orange, and welcome to another Metal Earth build video. Today, another Star Wars model. We're going to put together the speeder bike we have right here. This is classic model. I mean, it's from the original trilogy that came out ever so many years ago. It's interesting that this is a fairly recent release, right before the newest movie's releases. But if you look at the website, it's classified under the classic models, which is, where it belongs. I'm not going to argue that. But in this video, we're going to put this guy together. How difficult is it going to be? With it being a classic, are we going to go back to an easier build? Or with it being a recent release, is it going to be difficult, or I don't say difficult, but complicated and very detail-oriented, like some of the newer stuff? Well, let's go over to the table, open up the package, see what's inside, and start putting this together. We have the speeder bike. As you can see, it's already been carefully cut open. This was a trade that I worked out with someone here recently. I have looked inside. Everything appears to be there, but as if we were opening it for the first time, looking inside, we have two metal sheets with a little bit of color. Actually, a lot of color on one side, because I believe this is like many of the other newer Star Wars models where they've coated everything. Even the gray is a grayish color, doesn't have that shine to it. We have two pieces of paper for the instructions. I'm going to try and go over the instructions a bit briefly. I'm opening up the first page, the one that has the Metal Earth logo on it. Open this all the way up. Let's focus over here on page 1, which isn't really labeled, but it's easy to figure out. This is page 1. We have the Star Wars logo, the Metal Earth logo, we have a line drawing of the model and one of the sheets, a QR code where we can either scan this, or a QR code we can scan, or just go directly to this website where we can see a 360 view of the model for reference sake. Below that we have some information. We have a sample part with a notation on insertion tabs, fold line, insertion holes. Basically, tabs go into holes or slots to build these models, and fold lines are pre-scored areas where you're meant to fold or curve apart. Legend, we have the legend here. The E typically points at the E typically points at an engraved side or section, or colored side or section. Any points at a non-engraved side or section, or non-colored side or section. Try not to get engraved lines confused with engraving. That can happen sometimes. Engraving or engraved fold lines are not engraving. Attention point, when you see that, it's usually trying to get your attention in a way something aligns, though it can vary. Look to see if there's any instructions or notes around it to tell you what you should be paying attention to. And then we have the blue circle and green triangle that have been with these models from the start. Blue circle means to insert a tab in a slot and fold it over 9 degrees. Green triangle means to insert a tab in its slot and twist it 90 degrees. The twisted tabs tend to be more secure, but the folded over ones look cleaner. And then there's assembly temp. If needed, slightly twist the tabs to hold parts together, then untwist and bend them down for a nice finish. Something I highly suggest doing when you have a delicate part and a lot of different pieces to connect before it becomes stable. Here we've got a little bit about tools. We'll talk about tools here in just a moment. And below that we have an outline of the two part sheets. I'm going to grab one of them. Looks like I've grabbed sheet A, and you'll notice this is an outline of this sheet. Got numbers pointing at all the parts. Most of the parts are just outlines, line drawings. Some of them are colored in. The ones that are colored in, those are duplicate parts. There's 2 or more of the same part for whatever reason. Oftentimes symmetry. Cars will have 4 of the same wheels. There'll be 4 of the same parts. This is nice that they color those in. They make them easier and quicker to find them, and they save on space by only numbering one part but not the other. So for instance, we have part 23. This blue piece is labeled 23 here. This one is not labeled, but it's the same part. And then if we move over to page 2, we start to the assembly flowchart, starting with part 2, which is on sheet B. I almost forgot. If we go back, you notice these sheets are labeled A and B, and then the parts on them. It makes it easier to find the part if you know which sheet to look on. So we would start with part 2, which we know is on sheet B. Here's the part. It's colored in on the instructions as well. So this is a duplicate part, and well, we have 2 of them right here. So this is the part. This is indicating how to fold the sides down and curve them. The blue lines and arrows kind of indicate how that should be shaped. You got two of them. The arrows point to where they are. They come up and attach to this part, which is part 1 on sheet B. They attach in the appropriate slots with twisted tabs. You can tell that by the green triangle. And then you slide over here to part 3. Here's the part. Gets folded like so. Again, two of them times 2, so you need to find 2 part Bs. Flip them, fold the corners. They come here and attach to the same part with more twisted tabs. And then slide over. We've got part 4, which is on sheet B. The sides fold up. This is pointing at the engraved side. It looks like it's pointing at the outside being the engraved side. So in this instance, the non-engraved side is facing up and the engraved side is facing down. Here's the part. It attaches with twisted tabs. We got part 5 here. There's the part. A little bit of shaping of the sides with that one. It attaches here, and here's the final step of what things should look like now. That's the gist of it. There's actually a lot happening on this first line. But you just continue following along with assemblies and sub-assemblies, adding parts on, shaping them as indicated. The blue arrows and lines tell you how to shape stuff. Highlighted red parts also tell you that that's the part that's being shaped. To give you some more clues, just follow through down the page, putting things together. Of course, when you get to the bottom, you flip over, find page 3, you continue, page 4, continue, and then we grab the next sheet, open it up. Page 5, 6, 7, and 8. And once you get to the end, you're done with your model. Let's take a moment to talk about some tools. And I've got what I consider the basic set in front of me, starting with a pair of flush clippers or side clippers. These are primarily used to cut the parts out of the sheets. You can get the parts out by folding and twisting, though you run the risk of breaking something you didn't mean to break. A good pointed set of side cutters or flush cutters like this Play-Doh set that I've got here work really great for quickly getting the parts out so you can get on with your build. I have, of course, a small selection of tweezers. We've got a fairly basic set. This actually came with one of the older Iconics sets, and I've been using it for quite a while. But a good sturdy, flat end tweezers can come in really handy for doing a great number of things. I also have a few pieces from a precision set of tweezers. If you need some precision tweezers, just search precision tweezers online. You'll be able to find something out there. These two are very similar. They have a very fine point, though I did grind the tip of these down to help me grab tabs. And then this is just kind of a flat set for getting in tight spaces. And then we have a couple of pieces left over from the Fascinations 3-piece set. I broke the clippers long ago, so I had to replace them. But we have long nose pliers and flat nose pliers. Really handy. These are handy for bending long parts, and these are handy for bending short sections right here. But this is the basic set. We'll do a great amount of things with just this set right here. You'll be able to build a lot of different models and do a lot of different things. When it comes to shaping curved, domed, or rounded kind of parts, I like to have some sort of tool to mold things around, and I've designed some 3D printable tools for use in that. You might see me using the video. I've got some cone shaping tools. I have a little block here for rounding stuff. I have larger cone shape combo tools, and even a little tool for shaping dome shapes. However, you can just look around the house and find parts, dowel rods, pencils, beads, paintbrushes, pens, things like that can also be used to shape stuff as well. As for the 3D printed parts, I do sometimes print up extras and sell them on Etsy. Or you can just get the STL files if you have a 3D printer yourself and print these out. I'll try to include links to both the STL files and the Etsy store in the description down below. I have this angled needle nose pliers right here that I believe I bought at Harbor Freight, but not too hard to find angled needle nose pliers. These are handy for bending semi-long parts in tight places where you can come at it at an angle and occasionally getting into weird places to twist a tab. I also have these step mandrels that I occasionally pull out. These are something else you can find in the jewelry making section. They just have different size round bits for shaping things like tires. Stuff in the jewelry section can come in very handy for making 3D metal models. We briefly go over the instructions. I've got some basic tools out and ready. Metal sheets and instructions laid out. I'm going to organize things off to the side a little bit, and we'll get started on this build. While a bit fiddly and full of little bits to bend over, this build so far is straightforward. I slowed down a bit at this point. I felt I had to be careful that I was holding this correctly, with the engraved side facing the right way and folding parts correctly. It would be easy to fold something backwards at this point. Also, I have noticed with the Star Wars models, the instructions are getting a bit more crammed with information. These parts are a bit wobbly and crooked after being connected, but I have hope that later other parts will help pull things together and straighten them out. Flaps and panels are slowly getting more challenging to get to and fold. It took me a bit to get the second pedal on. Parts 21 appear to have a curved edge, but when bending the flaps over, the flaps create a flat spot. So I went around the edge and curved the flaps a bit. I didn't have much choice but to fold this forward tab forward. There really isn't enough room to fold it back. I studied the directions for a while and was not understanding how to fold the front part. I looked at the picture on the package and could see how things were folded and used the picture as a guide. These little back pieces got caught up in folding the front fins. I went to put this plate on, part 32, and realized that I was missing a couple of tabs. I neglected to put the bottom part of the front frame on. Yes, unfortunately, that was a bug crawling across my desk. Seasons have changed, and they're starting to come out. And that brings us to about a halfway point for this model. It's turned out to be a long one, partially because there's a lot of detail in here and I'm trying to include as much as I can. Fortunately, it wasn't a clean break. Did the best I could. We are, of course, going to pick up in part 2 and finish off this build. But going back to a question I asked at the very beginning of this video, I think we already have an answer. Is this going to be an easier model because it's part of the older lineup, technically, or is it going to be more challenging because it's newer? It's definitely falling in the challenging category. There's a fantastic amount of detail in this model, and honestly, at this point in the build, I'm a little bit tired of the detail, but I'm moving through it with the expectation it's going to get better. Will it? Let's find out in part 2. If it's not out already, it will be very soon, so keep an eye out for that. And as always, thank you for watching, and keep on keeping on.